Hey guys, my name is xOctoManx and this is part 22 of my turn-based build system tutorial. In this part I want to make sure that our hero character has the possibility to leave the town and enter the world, and also leave the world and enter the town. So we are taking care of a bit collision stuff in here, and also in how we can instantiate our hero character. So in the last part we were creating that hero character and its hero movement script, and what we want to do is we want to make sure that we don't have that in the town scene, and we go over to the game manager script and open this one up in MonoDevelop. And here we were creating the don't destroy onload function, or everything to check that we don't have any duplications of the game manager instance in a particular scene where another game manager instance might be in, so we don't have any duplicates. What we want to do is, at first we want to make sure that we are instantiating our hero character also in Awake. Since we don't have the possibility to call start several times in the game manager instance, since we only started once, we need to do that in Awake. Since Awake is every time called, a scene is called, but since this is a don't destroy on load game object, so it's not going to get destroyed, it's not also not getting started again, but it will awake every time. So what we do is, in here we need to create a connection to our hero character prefab we were just creating. If you don't have a prefab of your hero character, I will show you that one in just a second again. So what we do is we create a new public game object in the game manager script, and we call this one hero character. You can type whatever you want. You can also name it hero. It doesn't really matter. We just need to make sure that we can take the prefab and place this into that hero character slot. So when we are saving that and going back to Unity, we will see a new appearing slot on that game manager script. And also we can now navigate to the prefabs folder and drag in the hero character inside that slot. Also, I want to make sure that I apply the changes to the game manager prefab. If you don't have a game manager prefab and a hero character prefab, drag them in your prefabs folder as I just do in here, and then you have a creation of that. Same with the hero character. If you still have that in your main scene or in your town scene sitting at any spot, I don't know, then make sure that you drag this also in the prefabs folder, otherwise you cannot use this in that slot. Okay, let's get back to the game manager itself and start to code in the possibility to instantiate a hero character on Awake. We will only do that in a scene where a game manager instance already exists and we are getting rid of. I'm gonna show you why that is happening. Okay, so what we want to do is, at first we want to make sure that we don't have any duplication of a hero character in the scene. So what we ask for at first, we want to find a game object called, of course, hero character. So we type in if game object.find, and then here we name this one hero character. And we need to make sure that we type that properly in the right name. It doesn't matter how you call it here. You need to make sure that the game object's prefab is going to get found later on, or basically the name of the game object we will create in just a second, or instantiate in a second. So the next thing is, if I find that, I don't want to do that, but I want to make sure that I don't find that, so I implement an exclamation mark. So this will negate the finding of the hero character. So if we don't find a hero character, then we want to make sure that we create a new game object and call this one just hero. And then what we do is we instantiate the hero character. And after that, at the vector3.position, we can place in any position we want. We can start off with vector3.0. And as the rotation, which is a quaternion rotation, I can place in quaternion.identity. Later on, I can also go over rotations if you like to, but at first, since we don't have any rotations, I can get rid of that at the moment. Also, I want to rename that hero, so I say hero.name is going to be equal to whatever the name I want to, and we want to make sure that we rename that to hero character. The idea behind that is every instantiated game object will have a clone behind the prefab name, and clone stands in brackets, as you may have noticed already. So what we do is we rename that particular hero game object. We just instantiate it to hero character, so we don't need to look around a cloned character thingy and can compare that pretty quickly and easily. Okay, so now we are going to check out if this is working. So don't forget to save everything. And there is a cast missing. So what we need to do is behind or in front of, we need to typecast that instantiated object, since it's not a game object already. So what we type in is as game object. Don't forget to save. And now let's test this one out. So make sure in the town you have a game manager object or a prefab out of this. And we should, as you can see, create an instance of the hero character object in that scene. Let's pretty quickly go to the world map scene we were creating in the last part, and let's add a game manager prefab inside of that world too. It doesn't really matter at what position. We can make sure that we reset the position of the game manager object again, and it will be automatically set to 000. It doesn't really matter. But when I start the world with a game manager inside, you can see it will automatically create a hero character game object in that scene. As you can see, it sits behind or inside of that region. But as you can see, in the position or in the Z position, there are some freaking weird numbers already counting up at that position. So what I want to make sure is that all my encounter regions I will creating, I want to make sure that all the box colliders in there are trigger but not collider, so we can pass through them later on. Same for the hero character. It needs to be not trigger but collider, so make sure you don't use the trigger in this one. And also I don't use gravity and have my still everything frozen. So getting back into that once again, I will have still a strange that value in here. I don't know where this is coming from, but maybe it's going to be the instantiation already. Okay, so we have that done. We can go back to this town, or we start in here. It doesn't really matter. So what we want to do is we want to make sure... Oh, somehow my spawn point is gone. It doesn't matter. I will create one in just a second. So what I want to make sure right now at that point is that I am having the possibility to hit the collider of the town outside collider. And here we were creating in the last part too. And this of course needs to be a trigger too. So what we need at first is of course a new script. So I go over and create a new C# script and name this to collider or collision. Let me name it collision handler. The collision handler only gets some input values set by hand from us, so we can later on define what is going to happen when this collider or a specific collider is going to get hit. Okay, so I place that collision handler onto the town prefab or the empty game object where the box collider is sitting, and open this one up in MonoDevelop. And what we want to do is in here we want to create three variables. We need to input data, and there are only 3 at the moment, or basically 2, and the last one will be available on the next tutorial. What we want is a public string, and we call this one scene to load. This is going to be the scene name. You can always write you any commands below or behind that. So this is going to be the scene to load when we're hitting the collider. And of course we also need something which is a game object, and this game object is going to be our spawn point. This spawn point represents the spawn point we will land on when we already have changed the scene. I'm gonna explain that a bit better later on. Basically, we don't need to start an update, so we can get rid of it. And the last one later on will be a game state. We will create another state machine later on, so here will also be a state machine handler, basically, which will handle the states in what area we are currently in. But again, this will be part of the next tutorial. So in our hero movement, we want to make sure that we have the possibility to collide with something which is attached or has to do with the collision handler. Let's make the collision handler work at first for the world. Select town prefab, and as you can see in here, I can type in a scene to load as a string. And the string I want to load, or the scene I want to load, when I hit that particular collider, I want to load the scene town 1. Make sure, you have no typos or anything else. The only thing I cannot load currently is the spawn point. Since we need to create a prefab for all the spawn points of the particular areas and locations we want to spawn in or spawn out. So in the prefab folder, I create a new folder and call this one spawn points. And they will be everywhere on the world. It doesn't really matter, but we need the complete correct locations where they are, and we need to read out that positions to take care of how and where they are located and how we need to move our hero character to that particular position. Okay, so now when I would hit that collider, I would get an info, or basically I would be able to read out the scene to load and the spawn point. The small spawn point, again, I don't have at the moment, but as you can see, my town spawn point is somehow gone. That's not that. Into town. I don't know. I just duplicate this one and bring this over here. And I want to make sure that it is not part of the town prefab itself. I disabled this one, that's okay. And now I have another spawn point in here, and this spawn point needs to be at 0 in the y-axis, of course. And yeah, this has a position, as you can see, of 43 in the x and 32 in the z-axis. And this position will be later on our spawn position. I will rename this to a leave town 1. So a leave town 1, or you can also say a SP for spawn point, or I don't know. Let's say SP underscore leave town 1. Now I go to my spawn points folder and drag the SP leave town 1 in there. So when we are leaving the town, we will land on that spot. And now we're gonna save the scene and head back to the town 1 scene, since in there is this one, and I rename this to sp underscore enter town 1. So sp underscore enter town 1 is the point we will land on when we leave the world. Also, I want to make sure that I drag this one out of the town itself, even if I lose the connection to the town prefab. We don't need that basically anymore at the moment. Or we can always go over and apply the changes if we need that. It doesn't matter. So this point is going to be, again, the one when we are leaving the world and getting into the one or into the town. So, yeah, make sure that you rename that properly. And once you're done with that, drag this also in the prefabs folder of the spawn points. Now, as we are already here in the town, we can take this particular leave town 1 game object, which we can collide with too. It's also set to be trigger. If not, make sure it is. And once we are triggering this one, we also want to have the possibility of the script we are creating of collision handler. So when we are colliding with that collider, with our hero character, we want the scene to load world map. Make sure again that you type everything properly. Don't forget to apply the changes. And the spawn point we want to enter or to use or to spawn to is going to be in the other scene, of course, but we have the location directly in that spot, and we want to get sp leave town 1. Again, apply the changes to the prefab if it is in any way needed. I don't know, but I want to make sure that everything is saved. Okay, so when we are now want to leave the town, we would be able to have the spawn point position of sp leave town 1. And again, going back to the world map, I just want to make sure everything is safe and correctly done. Selecting the town first once again, and now we drag in the correct game object of that spawn point, and this is going to be sp underscore enter town 1. So we want to enter town 1, we want to land on that particular spot. Now that is not all. We first save everything and here we changed, but still it is not enough. So now we need to code in that the collisions are going to happen. Currently we don't need collision handler anymore, so we can close this one and go into hero movement. Hero movement needs one new function, and this is going to be called void on trigger enter. With on trigger enter we can trigger collisions and do whatever we want to, but we don't want to trigger everything, so we have the possibility to ask for a specific collider. And the collider can be at first everything, so any other collider we are entering we can check by using that one. You don't need to call this other, you can just call it whatever you want. And what we want to compare is at first, before we do anything, is if other dot tag is going to be equal to something. We will create that tags pretty quick at first. So heading back, ignoring that errors for a moment, that tag needs to be directly on the town prefab or the town collider or town game object. And here I already have an enter town and a leave town. So if we, as you can see in here, I already have them because I was testing all that stuff out already. So what you want to do is you want to go in here into the tag system and enter or create an enter town prefab and a leave town prefab, not prefab, a tag. So make sure that you type in everything properly so you don't have any problems later on. So, and of course go back to the town and select the tag from the list for entering town in the town prefab. Don't forget to save the scene and go back to the town 1 scene and on that green bar in here, which is the leave town one, which is currently untagged, as it might be for you too, you go over and create and choose the leave town tag. Don't forget to save the scene and get back to the world map once again. In the world map, well, basically it doesn't matter. So what we want to check is if there is a enter town tag on that particular collider we were hitting. If there was something like that, we can react to it. Now go over and copy that part and duplicate that over here, or without that. And instead of enter town, I type in leave town. So what I can do right now is I can call the game manager from this point and read out all the data from the collider I was hitting. And since we have some public values in there, we will just setting by hand. We can pass in the parameters into the game manager, so the game manager knows what the last position, for example, was. And how can we do that at first? We call the game manager instance, but we don't have anything new in the game manager already, or nothing, not much. So I command stuff out a bit to have it more, more visible. And what I want to do is I want to save or store some positions. And those positions are, of course, public too. And the first one is going to be of type vector3. And I call this one next hero position. The next hero position will be the spawn point position. Basically, not with that. Another one is going to be public vector3 last hero position. The last hero position is important later on when we are entering a battle scene. So we know where we have been at the last position, basically. Okay, like this. So these are two important hero positions we need to take care of at the moment. We will add stuff later on in there too. And what we also need is something about all the scenes. So the first thing is another public string in this case, and of course a scene to load. Oh, no typos. So a string about a scene we want to load, and another one which is going to be string last scene. So the last scene we have been there. So this here is for battling later on. And the last scene, of course, is also only for battle. But we will already take them in here and make sure that we already add them. In the next part, we will go over and enter all that barrels and stuff. Okay, since we have that hero position right now, what we can do is in the hero movement script, we can say dot next hero position, and we set this next hero position to something we read out of the collider. And the collider is other.gameObject dot, and here we need to get the component from that game object, which is called collision handler, if you remember. And inside that collision handler we have a spawn point, and the spawn point is not a vector3 but a game object, so we need to transform or take the information from the transform dot position and store that in the next hero position. To simplify everything, we can also catch the game object at first. So we can say game object, I don't know, let's call this one just call, is going to be equal to, and now we can, oh no, we do it a bit different. It's not of type game object, it's of type collision handler. Collision handler call, or call h, I don't know, is going to be equal to other.gameObject dot collision handler. Copy that part until here. What we now can do is we can shorten that to say call.spawnPoint.transform.position. Since we have catched that, we can also send more information to the game manager once again. So game manager.instance, and since we only have the position but not the scene we want to load, we can say scene to load is going to be equal to call dot, and here we can see we have already scene to load set up. Gonna save that. Both are string variables, so they will send string to string. And now we can call another function inside of the game manager who is able to load a particular scene. So what we can do is we create that new function in here, and it's going to be of type void, but make sure it is public, otherwise we don't have access to it from outside. So a public void, and what we call it is load next scene, maybe, I don't know. And this function can now load the next scene. What we need to add is the namespace UnityEngine.SceneManagement. Make sure that you add this one by typing in using UnityEngine.SceneManagement. Then we have access to the scene manager, so we can say sceneManager.loadScene, and then in brackets we can enter any name of a particular or usable scene. But we can also use the one we want, and this is going to be the scene to load, since we passed in the information from the hero movement from the collision we just did. So what we do is, after we were hitting that entering town collider, we want to say GameManager.instance.load next scene. Oh, and of course those brackets needs to be behind. Okay. Don't forget to save the scene the game manager too. And what we now want to do is we want to copy all of that stuff once again. And if we are leaving a town, we just go over and do all the same stuff, which is automatically set up. Okay. So with that done, we should be able to load the particular scene depending on which collider we were hitting. So it's time to test that out, and let's see if we have any errors left. Okay, we have our game manager in here, so we get a hero character somewhere in the world. I believe it will be at 000. So we could go over to our I go over and walk to my town. As you can see, there I am. Now I go and move to the town, and what you can see, it automatically loads the town. And it will again place me not into the spawn point, but somewhere in the center, since we get instantiated on that point in the awake function. What I want to do is, of course, leaving again, and as you will see, I will be again in the center of the map. But this is not what I want. I want that guys to be on the spawn point. That's where the next position comes in place. In the spawn itself, we did or called vector3.0, but even if we would say we want to instantiate at the next hero position, it will be zeroed out on awake, because we don't have, or we don't instantiate that from the already or from the past in-game manager object, but from the already existing one, and the existing one will have only 000. So what we need to do is, in the hero movement itself of the start function of the hero movement, we set this one by hand. So we say transform the position of that particular hero game object is going to be equal to GameManager.instance and .next hero position. Gonna save this one and test again. In here there will be no change, since the next hero position is still at 000, since we instantiated this one. But when I go over and move my hero character, well, actually, let's see where he is. There we go. And walk to the town. As you can see, I will automatically land on the spawn point. As you have seen, there is some weird drop up. I didn't seen before, so we will go over and fix this later on. And as you can see in here, we will be back on that particular spawn point. And we can walk around and do whatever we want to do and enter the town at any time we want. And that's it for now. I believe to get rid of that weird problem, we might to take care of something with the game object or the hero prefab. So somehow it's not working as it has to. But I believe I will fix that later on. It doesn't really matter for the moment. As you can see, now you have the possibility to enter and leave any area, any town and any building. So you could right now create some insides of the building and do the same when you are located in the town, of course. So to take that small green areas in here and use those areas to go into the building and use the other spawn points we were just creating, like house spawn 1 and 2, and use those to come back out and enter the area of the town again. So yeah, make sure everything works properly, of course. And yeah, then we are good to go. And in the next tutorial, we will enter a battle and of course make sure that we can fight random enemies. Yeah, and get of course random encountered. Thanks for watching the tutorial. I hope you enjoyed it. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. Thumbs this video up if you like it and feel free to become my patron or donate by using PayPal to support me and my channel in the future. All links will be below in the description. See you in the next tutorial. Bye bye.